CGTN, China Global Television Network.
When we talk about artists, celebrities and philanthropists giving back through charity work, what often comes to mind are those from the West and their different charities. In the last 2 decades, however, African personalities have become more involved in giving back through charity work in their respective communities and also across the continent. So why are African celebrities now choosing to take a greater role in giving back? And what does this say about the state of social structures across Africa today? I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Toke Africa. There are currently thousands of charitable organizations operating in Africa. Now, this is in addition to African individuals who donate millions of dollars each year to various causes. Let's take a look at some of these charities and the role they play in African society today.
Across Africa today, both local and international charities are involved in different kinds of community service. These range from small local children's homes and schools to foundations set up by wealthy individuals who give millions of dollars each year to various causes. Over time, there have been different views about the work charities are doing in Africa, and in some cases, their legitimacy has been called into question. There has also been debate about how beneficial foreign charities operating in Africa are to local communities. Over the last few years, though, there has been an increase in the number of charities and foundations in Africa started and run by locals. Genuine charitable organizations, though, fill a need in society that's currently not being met. They play an important role within marginalized communities in Africa, providing education, shelter, and food to people who would otherwise be going without.
And joining me now to unpack charity work in Africa are in Lagos, Sheyi Shey. She's a singer, songwriter and actress. In studio with me, we have Kenyan hip-hop artist Frasha from the Group P unit and Parcelelo Kantai, writer and investigative journalist. To you all, welcome to Toke Africa. Let me start by setting the stage here because over time there's been large amounts of charity, donations and philanthropy pouring into Africa. But what is less known are the contributions that are being given by successful African personalities. Shey, let me start off with you because the world knows you as a singer, songwriter and actress, but less is known about what you do outside your music work, specifically your organization, if I can mention, A Ray of Hope. So briefly, just tell us about this.
A Ray of Hope is started off as an initiative really to bring a glimmer of hope to displaced children, displaced women, and displaced families. And initially we started off by literally partnering with some of our organizations here in Nigeria, food organizations, drink organizations, and companies and organizations that were willing to donate money. And we would basically go about partnering with them and use those resources that they donated to basically help the children or the women or the families. And it started off with an orphanage who I am now the matron of in a place called Ibadan here in Nigeria. And then we moved to several orphanages around Nigeria and motherless babies' homes. And then we got these organizations to simply pledge to supply the orphanage or the motherless babies' home or the families, pledge to provide certain resources for them for a year, 2 years.
All right, Fresha, let me bring you in here because you also run the Fresha Foundation that deals a lot with orphanages. Tell us a bit about your work.
My foundation was formed 3 years ago, and 2 years ago we were dealing with children's homes, people with disabilities, And then this year we actually moved into HIV and AIDS, because what we found out is some of the children's homes that we were dealing with had HIV positive kids, and they had problems with nutrition. So we tried and do sustainable projects in the children's home for them to be able to grow and sell some of their foods that they were getting. So it's taken around 3 years.
So clearly working with underprivileged children and working with underprivileged people is a priority for you, as is for Shishe. What motivated you?
Yeah, I think mostly it's my upbringing. My dad and my mom have always shown me that whatever you get, you're supposed to share it. And there's no impact that is more impactful in the world if you can't help somebody else. So whatever small I got from my music, I was able to share it. And it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that I also want to show my kids. You know, this is how you do, this is how people live. If you're able to bring somebody up from the low sides, you know, if you're able, it's good.
Shay, though, what motivated you? Give us a bit of a background as to why exactly you decided to pick on the charity that you picked on. What motivated you to get into charity work?
I've been raised to know that, you know, every little that you have, you know, you should try and bless people with it, or the less fortunate. And I think that I just came to realize that I had some influence in the world and in my industry. And I could use that influence as a platform to do something for people that are less fortunate than me. And I decided to specifically take up orphanages or children without mothers or fathers, because I know how it feels to not have a father, for example, in my life growing up. And I know how it, and I know what it is to not have a family unit. I've seen it, and I've been a part of it, and I've been around it. And I think that there are more displaced children and more motherless and fatherless children in Nigeria, in Africa, in the world than there needs to be. So I was just inspired by that, and I decided to do something about it.
To you both, Shay and Frasha, though, Shay, you're talking about you have influence in the world, and as a result, you want to use that influence to do good in your community. Frasha, you know, skeptics might argue, though, that being influential people in your various industries, this is just a publicity stunt. How would you respond to that?
I think also my background is, for those people who don't know me, I'm a medic by profession. And when I used to work in Aga Khan for 6 years. And when I was very comfortable, by the way, working, and, you know, but then there was this thing about music. And when I got into music, I got a platform, and there was a way that people were looking at me. And for those who might think it's a publicity stunt, I think if it's publicity, it's something that you can only do for some time. But we've been there, we've been struggling. Our foundation is self-sponsored. We don't get money from outside. It's our money that we use. The people in our foundations, we collect, and we go do charity for you know, wherever we are going. So it's self-sponsored, and there's nothing to it about stunts. I don't know if people do it for stunts, but for me, it's something that has been there. I've been trained to help people before, and so it's just combining my profession and the position that I have to give back to the society.
So what do you get out of it, though?
Satisfaction.
Shay, answer that question for us, if you can, though, that this is sometimes people would think that what you are doing in terms of charity is also putting yourself on another platform and perhaps using this as you know, to raise your profile and, you know, as a public relations exercise. How would you respond?
Well, like Frasha said, you know, I have a platform, and I have the opportunity to help people, especially children, that need a ray of hope, per se, right? And I don't see anything wrong in utilizing my brand and my name and my influence to do that. The fact is, I've been doing this for the past 4 years, all right, bar 1 year that we weren't able to do it. And I have not publicized it in any way. We take pictures when we're with the children. We may put it on our social media, but we don't do any big press hullabaloo. We don't make a big thing out of it. And I specifically did that because I didn't want it to look like a stunt. Do you understand? And I think that if people don't see at least a little bit of what influential people like myself are doing, then we're not inspiring more people to do the same. So, you know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, really, you know?
Right, Parsilelo, let me bring in Parsilelo Kantai at this point. You're an author, you're an investigative journalist, and controversy in the media is not new to you. We've just talked about publicity stunts and influence that Africa's successful personalities have and how they're using that as a force for good in the community. What are your thoughts on charity, especially what we know as the white savior complex?
I think it's really inspiring. It's quite great to hear of Africans, young Africans, who are not politicians, who are not religious people, independently involved in charity work, because it tells us a number of things. One of them being that you actually have a group of people, or now a cadre of people, who are no longer tied to political patronage systems and are doing what they're told. Instead, they're actually acting on their own and trying to make a difference in their world in their own small ways. I think that's something that we were not talking about some years ago. It puts a totally different perspective on what we have known and grown up with on this continent as charity work.
What have we known?
The white savior complex, which you were mentioning earlier. The idea that Africans and the depiction of Africans as people walking around with a begging bowl and asking the world for a favor. You know, this showcasing and these activities of Africans who are doing things on their own. I like the fact that there's no claiming for publicity. It's just a question of, look, this is my personal conviction. This is what I want to do.
Are we seeing, though, that the concept of philanthropy on the continent is changing? Are we seeing more people getting involved, as successful Africans getting involved? Are we seeing that evolution now? And why is that?
I remember doing a story about this maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And as I was doing the story, I was also holding my breath, waiting to see what impact are these foundations going to make. You know, there was Tony Elumelu. Right. The Tony Elumelu Foundation was one of them. The most, I think, the most visible of about 5 or 6 fairly prominent foundations. And I've got to be honest and say that I was not clear with some of these foundations about whether they were doing charity work or whether they were private equity investors or whether they had kind of collapsed the two initiatives into one. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult. You've got other luminaries. Right. For instance, Mohammed Ibrahim with the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, which has had a direct impact on a very big platform.
Right. Let me just hear from Shay now and Fraser, though. In terms of the impact that you think you're making on society, do you feel as if charity work or philanthropy might breed, a culture of dependency, complicity, though? Could there be complacency from societies? Because obviously you're feeling a need in the community.
Of course, I feel like I'm making an impact. I know that Rome wasn't built in a day. I know that, you have to have the mentality of, stone by stone, brick by brick, and kind of just keep pushing and be consistent with something, right? And that's with everything. And I'm just one artist. And I'm not sure what other artists are doing, philanthropy-wise, but I know what I'm doing, and I know how I'm impacting people's lives and children's lives. And all I know is that this is what I can do for now. And as we get bigger and as we grow, hopefully, more and more people that are involved or partner with me will be inspired to do the same thing. And that's how cities are built. That's how nations are built. When more people get involved and it kind of spreads and it gets bigger, and and at some point, the impact is bigger than you could have ever imagined. And that's ultimately what we hope for. We hope that more people are kind of influenced and inspired to do the same thing, so that more people are affected positively. And will it cause an environment of dependency? No, I don't think so. I feel like there's always going to be that need to support and to help and to give and to love. And so I don't think that will ever change or stop. But we just hope that we inspire the people that can actually make a difference in this world.
Right, Frasha, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of impact, especially in our country, with charity work. The culture of dependency is mostly pushed by governments. It's not from people like artists. What we do is empower people, because if I go and do a project, the projects that we're doing in either children's homes, they're sustainable projects. It's not that I'll come there and the next month I'm also there, you know, trying to push them. It's something that we'll do for the first month and it will sustain itself over a period of time. So I think there's a lot of impact, and we need to encourage a lot of people to get into charity work, because, you know, there's a culture also in Africa of people owning a lot of, you know, wealth and, you know, securing your future for the kids of your kids. With the world the way it's changing right now, we know that we can make change in the smallest way possible. We can change, even if you take one kid and educate one kid, and that one kid can actually feed a village. So I think it is important for us to first of all encourage people who are in charity, and also pass on the thing of charity work into other stages, you know, in schools, in primary schools. I think it's very important for our country.
All right, we're going to explore that situation a little bit further when we return. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll have more on charity work in Africa. Don't go away.
Life moves pretty fast. Ideas move at the speed of sound. Technology moves at the speed of light. If you don't filter out the noise, you might miss the details. We pay attention to the details because they matter, showing you a different perspective. See the difference.
Welcome back to Toke Africa. Still with me, Sheyi Shea from Lagos, Frasha and Parcelelo Kantai with me here in Nairobi. Before we took the break, we got some insights into how and why people are giving back. Let's take a look now at some broader concepts of charity work in Africa. Frasha, let me start off with you here, because it does look like there are a lot more artists, a lot more successful personalities who would want to give back to their communities. In terms of the challenges that you faced when you are setting up your charity, talk us through that.
When we started, we were dealing with issues. Like, for example, we go to our children's home and they don't have clothes, they don't have food, and then we take food to them, you know. And after some time, we realized, you know, we'll keep coming back and doing this. So we started doing sustainable projects and doing farming, greenhouses with partners, helping them to get food now in the children's home. But for the last 1 year, I've been mostly in HIV and AIDS projects. And what we do advocacy and awareness mostly in campuses. And what we have realized is there's a lot of work which needs to go to sexual, you know, education, which needs to go into campuses. Because, for example, if we go for testing, we'll get around 60 people wanting to test. Mm-hmm. But we go with 6,000 condoms and they're all taken, meaning that they're sexually active, but very few want to be tested. So I think it's important for people to get to understand the charity that is there, the challenges, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and when you want to do it. And once you plan that, depending on the charity that you're doing, I think people start seeing it and start you know, helping you how to do it. But there's so many challenges which are in charity, and number one, you have to be very dedicated. And so when you hear people saying that you're doing it for publicity stunts, mm-hmm. If it gets to you, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. But if you know you're doing it for the right reasons, I think the challenges are just things that, you know, will help you out to reach your goals.
Shay, I see you're nodding there. It does seem that you have some views in agreement with Frasha. Tell us about your experience.
I mean, the challenges I've faced in the past have been, because I mentioned earlier that what we do at the Ray of Hope is we pretty much use our influence and our platform to get big companies, drinks, clothing, food, tech, to basically partner with us. And then sometimes they make pledges, all right, to support the orphanage or the foundation for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and so on. And I mean, there are a lot of setbacks in the sense that some people, they don't have that maybe in their plan, or they kind of don't have the ability, or they're just not interested, right? So it's really difficult for us sometimes to get people, and even just sometimes normal people, to even see what we're trying to do and get them to really just get involved and kind of pledge this help. And I think the more of us that do that, the more we kind of set that trend off, and we kick off that culture, and more and more people get involved and they do it. And I really like what Frasha said about sustainable solutions as well, right? Because when you start coming up with sustainable ideas and giving these orphanages or these less privileged people sustainable solutions, then you kind of don't really have to keep knocking down people's doors anymore, right? And then it becomes even more fulfilling. And so that's kind of what we're thinking about now, and we're going to kind of move into.
Personally, it does look like there is a difference here between a homegrown solution done by the artists or the people who are close to that community versus the other solution that we've known for 30 years, where you have a lot of Western philanthropists bringing their perceptions onto the continent.
Yeah, most definitely. Although I think it's got to be said, and I'd like to hear from Frasha about the kind of support that such initiatives are given. If you recall, at least in this part of the world, in Kenya specifically, when you heard about children's homes, the patron of a children's home was usually a prominent woman politician, or the first lady, or the wife of a prominent politician. The idea that there were, the idea of independent people, let's say unpatronized people not part of these kinds of systems and gravy trains involved in charity, was almost unheard of. What kind of support have they been given? What kind of support would they wish for from the government and from government agencies?
Right. Shay, you can go first.
Okay, in Nigeria particularly, artists and celebrities, or whatever you want to call them, have a lot of access to certain places and people that maybe a regular person wouldn't necessarily have access to. And this is why I think that we definitely could do more. We could literally get as much support as we really wanted to, if we really wanted to, and if we really tried. I mentioned to you earlier that how we started was by I was a Pepsi ambassador for some years, and I got them to basically make a pledge to provide supplies for these orphanages. So that was one way we did it, and that's part of the influence that I'm talking about. And I feel like if we really wanted to, we could really do so much more as influential people, as celebrities, and get all the support that we really wanted and really needed if we did more. But like I said in the beginning, step by step, stone by stone, Rome wasn't built in a day. But the more we do these good things, and the more we do these things and inspire people with our strategies of how we're doing this and how we're helping people, the more these other people will rise up and do the same.
Right, it is time for artists and influential people to take charge. We're going to wind up in a minute, but I want to get your final comments, and Parcerello, starting off with you, because it does look like more African organizations and more African people are starting to give back to their community. What is the future, though, of charity in Africa? Your final thoughts?
That's a tough one. I think it's largely positive. I think it was great listening to Frasha and Shay about and looking at the different kind of experiences of the growth of charity, which one immediately senses has a lot to do with another homegrown thing that has happened over the last generation, which is our own homegrown icons, who now, standing on their own, are able to command the kind of authority that was only available to the political people and the religious people. And these guys, they're young, are intervening and making a difference. If we see more of this, I think it's going to lead to something quite massive. You know, I'm thinking about the artist becoming, the artist as a philanthropist, becoming, the impact, the combination of that, the impact of that is potentially quite explosive. So it would be interesting to watch, I'd say.
Interesting to watch. Share your final thoughts. What do you think is the future of charity in Africa, and what would you like to say to your fellow artists?
The future of charity in Africa, honestly, is us. We are the future of charity in Africa. Me, you watching at home, you interviewing me now, you know, and everybody that has a platform, and everybody that can influence, and everybody that has a voice and a mouth, all right, and has a heart. I think we are the future, not politics, not religion, not education. We are the educators, we are the influencers, we are the ones with the platform, we are the culture. And I think that we have the most, we have the biggest responsibility right now to continue to do what we are doing now, to grow, to look at ourselves, look around and say, hey, what's missing? What has God given me to do on this earth? Oh, I'm a singer. Oh, I'm an actor. Okay, that's great. Why has he given me those talents?
Fraser, you have the final word.
Yeah, I think the future of charity, as Shay has said, mostly depends on us. The founding fathers of our country had a saying that had a slogan called Arambe, and which, I think in our country has lost meaning. But if you look at it, charity work is part of Arambe. It's part of helping each other. We've lost that sense of helping each other, and I think as influential people, as celebrities, and as even a parent, you know, it's just time for us to reflect and see how can we help each other grow. I think with the corporates coming in, with the government helping us, and with the influential people also helping, I think we have a great future in Africa.
All right, Frasha, Parsilelo Kantai, and Shay, thank you very much for your insights on the program. That's all we have time for this week. But thank you to my guest, Shay, a singer, songwriter, and actress, Kenyan hip-hop artist Frasha from the Group P unit, and Parsilelo Kantai, writer and investigative journalist. Remember, we'd love to hear your feedback through our social media handles on Facebook and Twitter. And you can catch the show on our YouTube playlist to keep the conversation going, and tune in again next week for more Toke Africa. From me, Beatrice Marshall, and the team in Nairobi. Goodbye.